My 21M mom and I have a less than stellar relationship. My parents are divorced, and I lived with her until I was 16. A couple of months before I turned 16, she started dating a guy, and he didn't like me at all. I always had to hear he elsewhere when he came around. Shortly after my 16th birthday, my mom told me I was going to spend the weekend on my uncle's farm. So I went and it was pretty fun. She didn't show up the day she was supposed to pick me up, so I called her, and she basically told me I was staying with my uncle permanently. When I told him he was P*, rightfully so. We both tried calling her, but she didn't answer. We did everything we could think of to get a hold of her, but we couldn't. The last time I saw her was a week later when she dropped off the rest of my clothes. My uncle is technically not my uncle. He's just a family friend, but he's the closest thing I've had as a parent for the last 5 years. My dad and I aren't close. Apparently, his house was too full for me when my mom left. Honestly, a big part of me is glad this happened. Shortly after I moved in, I got my own horse. She's a Clydesdale named Mary, 6F, and she's my best friend. I've been working on the ranch with my uncle since I graduated and I'm really liking it. I feel at peace. Anyway, my mom showed up to the ranch today. I had just got on Mary. It was funny, she didn't recognize me at first. She came up to me and asked if I'd dismount. I didn't. She told me this story about how she moved across the country with her ex because she thought she'd be happy with him. Then she told me that things didn't work out, so she found a place. Then she basically demanded I come home. I sarcastically said, sure, and I got Mary to start walking. That set her off. She started after me and started ranting about how I needed to live a normal life, and that I had to find a girlfriend and not ride horses all day. I stopped and said, as far as you're concerned, this horse is my girlfriend, and that set her off even more. My uncle caught wind of what was happening and he came over and asked her to leave. She shouted, I'm not leaving without my son. My uncle told her to leave again and threatened to call the cops if she didn't, and that got her to leave. The reason I'm making this post is because my dad just sent me this long text about how my mom misses me and how she only wants what's best for me. He then went on to say that I should give her a chance instead of threatening to call the cops. He ended the text by saying I was in a hole for not even getting off my horse to speak with her.
Comment 1. I'm surprised she thinks he's entitled to anything after abandoning you, but I'm a little worried that as far as the law is concerned she might be. I don't know the legal and financial details here, you haven't mentioned them and might not know about them, and I suspect this situation is concealing a lot of complicating details. But you're not morally obligated to speak to your mother, and if your guardian doesn't choose to exercise their authority over you, you can't be. You did say you're 21, right? Which would mean you're an adult. Your father and mother might possibly have legal authority over you, but as far as I'm concerned they've forfeited all rights to tell you what to do and how to behave. If they don't have legal authority over you because you're now an adult, I don't see how she can tell you to come home. Comment 2. Your mother doesn't want what's best for you. If she did, she wouldn't have abandoned you. She wouldn't have cut you out of her life, so that she could be with the person who actually mattered to her. Her, now, ex. Your mother doesn't get a say in your life anymore. You do what you want, and your mother can live with the consequences of her actions. She was an abject failure as a parent. Comment 3. Next time she contacts you, ask her if she'd have come crawling back to you if her squeeze hadn't dumped her. You are not a backup plan. And you aren't a child anymore. 2 possibilities: either she hasn't changed, and has some ulterior motive, free babysitter, looking good to her friends and family, etc., or she has changed. Which means she could have changed any time, and not just when there were no other options. I, 29F, and my business partner, 34F, run a wedding planning and coordination business. For context, we have several different packages, but it breaks down to basically A. We plan your wedding start to finish, or B. You plan your wedding and we are there on the day of to execute the timeline, coordinate vendors, etc., 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 to make sure the day runs smoothly and you have no stress. Here's what happened with one of our Package B clients. The ceremony begins at 6 p.m., in a different area on the same property, and the bride was told that not only would she be the only wedding in the room that she booked on that day, but that because she was the only wedding in that room that day, she would also be able to go in there prior to her ceremony to take photos, as all vendors had ample time to complete the room setup. Normally these photos would happen during cocktail hour, but she didn't want to miss out on that, so we were trying to accommodate her, and it should have been no issue considering she was told that she was the only wedding that day. Yesterday, we received an email from the florist stating that they couldn't gain access to the reception room, according to the venue, until 5:45 p.m. as there is another wedding occurring in the same room and it ends at 5:45 p.m. normally. This would be fine and we would simply rearrange timings and notify the vendors so that they can allocate additional personnel to account for a short setup time. So, we called the client and asked if she was aware of this. We understand now that she should have called the venue first to confirm this, however it ended up being accurate, so it wouldn't have made a difference. She was not and was incredibly upset. She and her father called the venue and, apparently, went off on them. The venue event specialist then called my partner and scolded her for telling the client, stating that telling her the week of her wedding was bad coordinating practice and that we should have just let it go, and then hung up on her without letting her speak. After speaking with my partner about this phone call, I called the event specialist myself to get a feel for what was going on from his point of view. He gave me the same treatment, would not allow me to speak, and hung up on me. Immediately after, we attempted to call the bride at 5:50 p.m., but she didn't answer. So, we sent her a text to please call us, which she also did not answer. An hour later, we sent another text to the group chat we have with her and her sister, asking to please call us, but neither one of them has responded. It is now 12 p.m. the next day and she still has not texted or called, and we're supposed to have our final call this evening. So, AITA for telling her that she wouldn't be able to take photos in the reception room prior to her ceremony because the venue booked another wedding during the day and we wouldn't be able to have the room setup completed in time. Comment 1. NTA et al. You can manage around this, but I would take event specialist to task and go to their manager about how you were treated. It's a two-way business relationship, and you can stop using their venue. Does this venue send you clients? If so, you still should talk to the manager and do damage control. This specialist has it out for you over what is their mistake. Comment 2. Telling her the week of the wedding is bad practice, so it's better to let her find out the day off? Yeah, sure, that guy definitely knows what he's talking about. I'd say there's a possibility that she just misunderstood when she initially booked, but based on their reaction, and specifically them getting mad that you told her, my money's on someone on their end screwed up. NTA. Don't assume she's mad at you, though. It's possible that she's not responding because she's trying to figure something else out on her own, or was just so frustrated that she needed a break for the night. Comment 3. NTA. I got married last September, and if another vendor informed me that our venue had been lying about availability in a way that affected the day of plan, I'd have been so thankful for them and so furious at the venue. How the hell is the venue gonna say that you shouldn't have told the client the week of the wedding when they weren't gonna tell her at all? Hi, I'm 37F. I have a 10-year-old son. I'll call him Sam. My son was invited to a sleepover from one of his classmates, let's call him Taylor. Because I didn't know his parents very well, we got together a few times so we could get to know each other. We eventually set up a date, and the other mother, which I'll call Lady for now on, insisted on hosting the event. I agreed and later dropped my son off, telling him to behave and all that jazz. Toward the end of the day around 9-ish, I got a call from my son's phone. He has a basic flip phone for things like this. He was upset and wanted to come home. I asked what was wrong and he told me that Lady wanted to put him in a diaper. I told him to put her on the phone and she answered it in a huff, telling me my son wasn't being stubborn and misbehaving. I could hear my son in the background saying he just wanted to go home. So I told her I'd be there in a few minutes and hung up. When I got there, I was let in by her husband. He apologized for the trouble and I went to find my son. He was still upset when I found him sitting at their kitchen table along with Taylor. Asked him what was going on and he explained to me that because Taylor wet his bed, Lady wanted him to wear a diaper as well. I turned and looked at Lady and told her Sam doesn't wet the bed and didn't need to put anything extra on for bed. She argued back that it wouldn't hurt him and would make Taylor feel better. To be honest, I kind of understood where she was coming at and even considered asking Sam if he'd be willing to do it for his friend. That was until I saw the thing. I was expecting a pull-up. But this was what looked like a thick adult diaper meant to fit kids. Then the shocker came when my son told me she tried me make him take off his pants and lay on the floor so she could put it on him. I turned back to Lady and told how inappropriate this all was and collected his things to leave. She got belligerent and said Sam didn't have anything she hasn't seen before. So we left. Taylor, the poor boy, looked crestfallen. Not that I blame him at all. But my problem and the reason for this post is due to the fact Lady put what happened on Facebook. Most of the commenters are on her side. Comment 1. NTA. Making a 10-year-old take off his pants against his will in order to put him into an unneeded diaper would get you in trouble with the police in most countries. I would politely let one or two other gossipy moms in the class know what is going on and let her be rightly reviled. Her intent was good, but her execution was horrific. If she put hands on my son to make him take his pants off, there would be hell to pay, let me tell you. I wouldn't put my hands on her, but there would be words with the right people. If you feel the need to correct things on FB, I would say, Lady, every story has two sides. All I ask is that strangers do not seek to put their hands on my son's undressed body. But that would cause a bad storm, so maybe don't. Comment 2. NTA. And I'm super curious how on earth Lady worded things on her Facebook post to make so many people agree with her. Even before I read the part about her trying to lay your son on the floor and put the diaper on him, I was thinking Lady was absurd and that you were NTA. But reading that part about trying to force the diaper on him really put things way over the edge. How could she have possibly said things on Facebook to put herself in a positive light? Nothing about this encounter was okay. Comment 3. Former child welfare social worker here. NTA, and under no circumstances is what she tried to do to your son appropriate. Please have a moment with your son to tell him he did the right thing and you are proud of him for saying no and informing you right away. Saying no in a situation like that can be so scary and traumatic for a kiddo. Express again that what his friend's mom did was extremely inappropriate and give some space for him to talk about his feelings. I, 34M, am engaged to my fiancée Emily, 31F. Both of our families are lower class, so we have to pay for the wedding by ourselves. We talked it through and I suggested we have a more chill, smaller wedding and save our money for a down payment on a bigger house. I make significantly more than her. She's a teacher and I'm a doctor, so I told her I would take care of the majority of expenses like the venue, catering, and planner if she just paid for her dress and smaller stuff like that. Last week her parents hosted a party for us before the wedding and her mom kept making comments about how she can't believe how small our wedding will be or that we're not hosting it at the fancy hotel downtown that's just so much better and elegant than what I chose. I even overheard her talking to her sister about how small the diamond is in Emily's ring and that it's embarrassing a doctor won't treat her daughter better. I spent about $5,000, which I thought was fair. She just seemed so hung up on the fact that her daughter is marrying a doctor but the wedding/ring aren't on a doctor level. Based on what I know, I think she is a little embarrassed about her family's socioeconomic status, and was hoping her daughter marrying a doctor would help improve her image to her friends and extended family. Throughout all of it, Emily looked extremely embarrassed and awkward and kept trying to tell her mom it was fine, and her mom just said you need to learn to stand up for yourself. This is when I just lost it and told her mom she can be uninvited from the wedding if she has so many problems with it and is embarrassed by how cheap I am. Comment 1. NTA Mill is a gold digger. Just in case your fiancé supports her mother's behavior, get a prenuptial agreement. Don't let love blind you. She may have been pushed to find a doctor to marry. The fact is she told her mom it's okay. She didn't say it was perfect and put her in her place. She may love you, but if she ever decides she's not happy with doctor's hours, things will be a mess. I admire your small wedding. It should be personal, not a waste of money on a big show for people who are only there for the free food and drinks. Good luck. Comment 2. NTA, strictly speaking. But I do think this requires a serious conversation with Emily. Is she really okay with the plan you've made for your wedding, or would she like to invite more people, for instance? Just make sure you don't steamroll your fiancé into agreeing to something she may not actually want. But if she really is on board with your plans, then she needs to manage her family, and make it entirely unambiguous that this is what she wants, and mom needs to shut up and get on board. Comment 3. You don't have the right to uninvited the bride's mother. What does Emily want? And does Emily want just a small wedding and down payment for a house, or is her mother speaking some level of truth here about Emily's wishes? This whole thing is a joint effort. I'd be sure on what your wife's dream is too and meet her at 70%, based on your income. A house can wait an extra $30,000 if it's your wife's dream, but if it's just a cranky mill and Emily is 1000% on board with your cheap wedding, then find tactful ways to quiet Mill and let Emily decide who comes to the wedding. In theory. NTA, but this is giving some rouge flags.